Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Michelle here. In this video, I will identify the signs that indicate that a man is stingy. To do this, I will assess factors such as their physical appearance, age, grooming habits, fashion choices, and religious beliefs and underlying personality traits. For this analysis, I will categorize the levels of stinginess exhibited by men into five distinct tiers. The first tier is E tier, which means effective. A man who is E tier is effective with his finances and he is mindful about his spending and he's not an idiot giving his money away to anyone who asks for. The next level is C tier. C tier stands for cost conscious. A man who is C tier is cost conscious and indicates that he has a relationship with money that might need improvement. However, for some women, he's not cheap. For some women, he's just a smart man. And next we have B tier. B tier stands for bargain hunter. A man who is B tier is a bargain hunter, and this suggests that he is indeed cheap, but he's not entirely hopeless in this regard. And then we have next tier, which is A tier. A tier is labeled as avaricious. A man who is A tier is avaricious and he has a high degree of cheapness. Then we have next S tier. S tier represents the most extreme level of stinginess a man can reach, which is referred to as super cheap. A man who is S tier is so cheap, but so cheap that once I was in Brazil when I was a child, and there was a boy talking to me, and then an older man came, interrupted our conversation, and this older man said that the guy who was talking to me, the boy who was speaking to me, was so cheap, but so cheap that he would put an Alka Seltzer in his hand, dive into the pool, and get out of the pool with his hand completely dry because he could not open his hand for nothing in this world. This is the definition of S tier man. It's so cheap. It's super cheap. Now, guys, let's get started with the first man. The first man is the aura ring man. What is a aura ring? A aura ring is a titanium kind of ring and it's made with in different colors. It costs about $500 on average and it's supposed to track health metrics such as heart rate, sleep, all of those tracking that does to your body. I've noticed that men who wear Oura rings are usually practical and they are usually only wearing a Oura ring. They don't accessorize with any other kind of jewelry. They only have the Oura ring and it's only there because they say it tracks their sleep, it tracks their heart rate, and they're exercising while they are exercising. But I've noticed as well that those kind of men who wear Oura rings do not look like they exercise. They actually do have very soft bodies, barely any muscle. They don't look like people who are super worried about their health. And or they don't even look like they work out. And there is probably another reason why they buy auto rings. Maybe because they think that $500 is a lot of money for a ring. That's why they buy because they think it's a good uh, show off kind of ring because it's $500. But you see, $500 is not a lot of money. And that's why maybe those men are cheap that they use this. But I've noticed that every time when I meet a man who has an auto ring, oh yeah, he buys things. He's not like that cheap, but he's not that big baller. You know, big ballers are never using auto rings. And I've noticed as well that women never wear auto rings, even though auto rings are also made for women too. They are in color pink, all kinds of colors. But every time when I see someone using an auto ring, it's always a man that does not look like he works out, and I rarely believe that they would track their health metrics as they say they do. there is usually a correlation between a man being stingy and a man having an outer ring. It's kind of difficult to explain. Like I said, it could be the fact that they believe that $500 it's a good show off kind of jewelry in their opinion. $500 for them maybe be a lot of money, and also it could be that fact that they are more practical men. They wouldn't buy something just because it's beautiful. They want something that is useful, and that's what makes them stingy. But yeah, I've noticed that every time when I meet a man who has a auto ring, he is not super cheap, but he's not a big baller who is going to spend thousands of dollars. So, and that's put his auto ring man in the B tier. And B tier is a bargain hunter. So, yes, the auto ring man is B tier, which is a bargain hunter. Now, guys, let's go to the next man, which is the sentimental jewelry kind of man. Guys, this guy, it is interesting to talk to. He has what a sentimental jewelry is. A sentimental jewelry is usually a jewelry that he got from his family members, maybe his grandma, maybe his mother, his father. It's usually jewelry that passes family to family, and it does not mean that it could be expensive, but not always. The price of the jewelry, it's not important in this case. In this case, is the reason why he wears it. He never takes off. The sentimental jewelry stays with him even when he showers. It does not matter. He can change his outfits. He can change the color of his shoes. Everything keeps changing, but he keeps the same sentimental jewelry. It never takes off. And as well, a sentimental jewelry would be a friendship kind of jewelry that has that indicates that he's a part of a group. It can indicate as well that he is a person that values family because he this jewelry that he's wearing, also his family members are wearing the same jewelry, so they have the feeling like they are always together. You know, a sentimental jewelry, it's very vast and broad, and there's many ways to identify, but the many ways why you can know that a man is wearing a sentimental jewelry is that he never takes off. It is always with him all the time, and it usually someone that they liked very much have the same jewelry, and it has usually has names in it, like name of a person is usually some symbol, could be even a religious symbol. And those men, I believe they are sentimental themselves, and I think the reason why those men are cheap, I believe, is because sentimental people are usually not very good at making money, and not always, but I mean that must be one of the reasons why those men are cheap, because they are so emotional, and mm, they don't resonate with the idea of money capitalism. They are probably in the kind of people who are into like group kind of mindset. He's a group thinker, and he's not like a person that welcomes other people outside of his group or in society. He's more like the kind of guy that would praise more his friendship circle than the outside world. Maybe he does not trust other people. Maybe he has a problem with society. He has like aversion to society. And that's what makes the sentimental man a S tier, guys. A S tier is super cheap, and it is a man who wears sentimental jewelry is super cheap. Now we have the next tier, which is the organic jewelry man. The organic jewelry man is similar to the man who wears sentimental jewelry. And organic jewelry, guys, it's anything that has theme nature, like a jewelry who has themed nature. For example, it could be the teeth of a lion, the teeth of a tiger, it could be a leaf, it could be a fang, a feather. that a man wears and it resembles nature. And to me, the reason why those men are stingy is because they are probably having an aversion to society, and they probably have a negative opinion about gaining capitalism and acquiring wealth, and they believe that retrieving to nature is a form to reject that lifestyle that they don't resonate with, which is the pure like city like kind of vibe. Whenever you make money, it is money is usually made in the city, so they are not city people, they are nature kind of people. So they are away from this the money game. They are not in this, they're not playing the game. It's just, to me, is a way that they state, hey, I'm not playing this game. I am retrieved from society. I don't resonate. I don't buy into this rat race game, and I'm here, I'm me. And as well, another reason why I think those kind of men are cheap is also because I believe men who have teen nature jewelry are sometimes naive and unconscious about what nature really is, which is nature is ruthless, nature is cheap, and nature is the least emotional beings in the universe. And most of the times you can see that nature does not favor men. And I think men who revere nature are usually naive. And I think people who are having this kind of innocence and naivety have sometimes problem making money. So that's why I think that organic jewelry men are S tier, which stands for super cheap, and he is S tier. This is the organic jewelry man. Now, guys, let's jump for the next guy, which is the many rings kind of guy. The many rings kind of guy. Wow, there's so much to talk about this guy. Those rings could be the same type of rings all together, the same team rings like this. For example, all of his rings, they has all of his fingers, there's a lot of rings in his fingers, and all of his fingers have rings. Sometimes except the thumb and the pinky, sometimes all of the fingers have lots of rings, sometimes different rings, that's the same rings. For example, he has metal rings, he has like nature kind of rings, and rocks, and it doesn't matter, it's just a lot of rings. I To me, those men are cheap because they usually give me a vibe like they are very narcissistic, and they are self-absorbed, and they would not spend a lot of money on women. He would more likely to spend money on himself and to care about himself and believe that he is someone more interesting than women. Like a lot of men who are so vain like that, they usually believe themselves to be way more interesting than other women are. And I think that's why they don't spend money on women. That I think that's why they are, stingy. And but as well, another reason why those men that have many rings don't spend money, and I think it's because they are probably sentimental about the rings and about himself. He's a man sometimes that I usually talk to them. They have that fire inside of them. They are a little bit like, oh, this is me. Like they want to have an identity, and they have strong personalities. They are inflexible, and I think that that's what makes them difficult to spend money on women, besides of them being vain. And I also have noticed that men who have also many rings also have bracelets, and also wear all kinds of necklaces, and those necklaces are usually like dragons, usually like a skull kind of necklace. It is usually a weird necklace. And all of those men are usually very into like grooming themselves, and they are narcissistic sometimes, not super narcissistic, not in a bad way, but they usually think of themselves to be more important than women. So that's why they are the many rings kind of man is a C tier, which is cost conscious, not super cheap. It's just a cost conscious man. He could spend money, but as like I said, he could not spend neither because he's most likely into himself. Now let's talk about the next man, which is the creepy man. Creepy man is a stingy man, and I will prove it to you how. Every time when I met a creepy man, I later figured out that they also were stingy. And you must be thinking right now, oh, maybe it's because he didn't spend any money on you. That's why you think they are creepy. No, no, no. Before you say anything, let me explain to you. Like all of the times that I found a creepy man. A creepy man, first of all, a creepy man is a thief. A creepy man is a thief of intimacy. He's a pickpotter. Pick pickpocketing. He's a pickpocketer of his intimacy. He looks at you and he wants to steal intimacy from you without any investment, without anything. And there is two kinds of creepy men. There is the ugly and creepy and the handsome and creepy. And I know a lot of you guys are going to say, "Oh, he maybe be creepy only because he's ugly because a handsome man if he was handsome you would not say that he's creepy. No, 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 no. There is a lot of handsome and creepy men, and there are two difference between a creepy and ugly and creepy and handsome. Because a man who is ugly and creepy, he's not gonna approach women. He's going to stalk them on social media. He's going to stare them from far. He's not gonna approach a woman and he's forever going to be stalking her and staring at her without saying a word because a creepy and old and ugly man knows that his approach will not be welcome for a woman. However, the handsome and creepy men do approach women. That's the men that women have to be cautious about because those creepy and handsome they will approach you, they will try to destroy your boundaries. They will do anything and everything to just steal intimacy from you in a physical way. Me, for example, I have dealt with ugly and creepy. Once there was a ugly, creepy man staring at me, and then he came to me and said, "Hey, excuse me, I was looking at you. Here's $100." And this man gave me $100 for looking at me, but he was ugly and creepy, so he understood that. But most of the time, those ugly and creepy just stare and stalk you and gives you the heebie-jeebies and give you the creeps. Now, the handsome and creepy man, I have experienced many times this before. Including Chicago once, I met this. I was at the gym. I had just moved into Chicago by myself, and I was at the gym at night until I saw a man. He was like about 6'3". He was a really tall man. He had a really nice, good looking face. He had a really nice body, and I could tell that he was an attractive man. However, I wasn't attracted to him. I had just saw him. I never even spoke to him, but he would insist in talking to me. One time, he started talking to me. I was very short with him. I didn't talk to him at all. But then I just moved into Chicago and I had no friends. So I thought to myself that would be a great idea for me to at least have someone to call for if I needed help with anything. So I got his number, and then once I needed to open up a coconut, and then I called him and asked him if he could come open the coconut for me. I'm from Brazil, so I eat a lot of fruits, especially coconuts is one of my favorite fruits to eat because it makes you full for a long time. And this man came to my apartment and opened up this coconut for me with this plier, and then the my apartment had no sofa, it had nothing because I had just moved in. We sat down at the floor, and then I sat at the floor, he sat at the floor as well. And while we were talking, he was rubbing his leg against my leg, and he was looking at me with some ugly dead eyes that it looked like a zombie. I was very uncomfortable with that situation, but I didn't say anything because he just had did me a great favor, was to open up the coconut for me. Then he started after that he started rubbing his leg on my leg. He asked me if we could go grocery shopping together. He asked me if we could walk around in downtown, get an ice cream, go to the movies. And you see, all of those um, invitations, all of those things are typical of cheap men kind of dates, like walk in the city. Like this is like so cheap and so like kind of it is just really stingy. That kind of entertainment, it's so cheap and stingy. It's typical, and I saw he was creepy. And before he talked about his plans of taking me for a walk. And I told him that that it's better him for him to go, but of course I declined the stingy and the cheap entertainment. I declined. But then after he left my house finally, I received a text message from that man, from the same man. And then he texted me a picture of himself in front of the mirror without a shirt. And he asked me if I liked that he has just shaved his chest, if I liked that, if his chest was shaved. I told him never text me nothing again, especially this picture of your chest. I have no interest in seeing. And you guys can imagine what he said. He said that he was not even interested in me in the first place. That man said that I wasn't even good looking for him to be interested in me. But I don't care. I never talked to him again. Finally, I started seeing him. I pretend like I didn't see him anymore. And so he was a creepy man, obviously, and cheap and creepy at the same time. And then a few years later, I moved out of Chicago. And that I was another time in another place. And there, when I moved into another apartment, there was a man who was always outside with his dog, and he would always say hi to me, and I would always reply, hi, very short, very quick, and I would never stop. I would just continue walking, and he would ask me from far, where are you from? Where are you coming from? And I would just reply, if very short, never stopped and said nothing to him. I continue walking, and it was obvious that I didn't want to talk to him, especially because he gave me the creeps. Even before he spoke to me, he gave me the heebie jeebies and the creeps. And guess what? That man was not ugly. He was actually a good looking man. I could tell that he was a good looking man just by looking at his face. He had a very nice face, actually a better looking face than the one from Chicago. He was a tall man. He was not short. He had a nice body. He wasn't that ripped and that strong as the one in Chicago, but he had a good looking body, and I would understand why a lot of women would want to be with him. However, the first time that I saw him, he gave me the creeps and the heebie-jeebies, and he insisted talking to me. And once he started approaching me closer and closer, once he stopped in front of me, it did not allowing me to move on, to keep walking. So because I would never stop, he made me stop by standing in front of me with his dog, and he started asking me questions. And I just had, oh, I have to go, I have to go. But one time he lost completely the respect for me, and he again stopped in front of me with his dog, and I'm so scared of dogs. And he grabbed my hand and asked me for a hug, and I said, oh, I have to go. But then he started to pull on my hand, and I gave him a pat on the back. And then he insisted on a full hug. He called me a creep. He said I was the creepy one because I didn't want to hug him. And then I gave him a hug on the side, like on the spine next to his ribs, because I didn't want to hug him from the front. Then he started laughing and he said, "Yeah, I was really creepy for doing that to him." And then he pulled me into his body, and then when he hugged me, he wanted to feel my breast. And I until I had lost the patience with him, I said, like, "Sir, you went over." you are over line, you are out of line. And then he said, oh, I'm sorry, and asking me, and then he asked me to go to him to the to walk around the same thing that they all the creepy men from Chicago did, the cheapest date ever. uh Coffee dates, asking me for coffee dates, asking me if I want to go to the farmers market, if I want to walk his dog with him. Typical of a stingy creepy man. And I lost patience with him. I said, no sir, you are creepy, and you are stingy and broke. And then he told me that he never even thought about dating me or anything. He wasn't even attracted to me. I wasn't even good looking enough for him. And the same, I should have learned my lesson, but apparently didn't. So I'm saying guys, what I'm saying here is this: there is a strong correlation between a man being stingy, creepy, at the same time. And I'm not talking like this because, oh, just because a man don't spend money on you is because he's creepy. No, I've noticed that a man is creepy, and then after I notice that he's creepy, he comes off with those cheapest dates, with about coffee dates. All of those are creepy kind of men, kind of dates. And then you probably say, oh, it's because he's ugly. No, no, no. There's two kinds of creepy men. Like I said, there is the ugly and creepy, and the handsome and creepy. The ugly don't approach you, and the handsome always approach you. He always try to physically pull on your hand, physically give you a hug, force you into intimacy. Like I said, those creepy men are stingy because, above anything else, creepy men are thieves, and they are thieves of intimacies, and they are pickpocketing intimacy from you when they approach you. Other it would be like from stalking you, other would be by forcing you to hug them, and forcing you to give away your time to them. They are stingy. They don't have, they only are there to suck the life out of you, suck the time out of you. And of course, those creepy men are S tier, which is super cheap. They are super cheap because they want to consume you. As soon as they see you, they don't want to give anything for your time. They don't want to recompensate you. The creepy men want to consume you until the last drop. They are vampires of beauty and youth, and those creepy men are S tier, super cheap. Now let's talk about the ugly man. So ugly man, guys, could be cheap because when a man have is ugly and he's aware that he's ugly, he's very likely to be stingy because he knows that even if he has money, there's a lot of women that would not be with him. No, it's not truth when some people say that if a man has money, he could have any woman he wants. That's not truth. A lot of women would never mate a man who is unattractive. It does not matter how much money he has. Why? Because a lot of women have money themselves. A lot of women have a career. A lot of women would not be with a man just because of money, because they have money. The only women that would be with a man only because of his money is women who doesn't have any money. And so a ugly man cannot have any woman he has. So a ugly man knows that even when he invests his money on a woman, it's possible that he's not gonna get intimacy from her, or solely because he's ugly. And that's what makes an ugly man usually cheap, because he doesn't want to lose his money, so he's not going to invest on a woman knowing that he's not going to get any return for his investment. So but there are cases in which men are ugly and they're not aware that they are ugly. Some men are extremely unattractive and they don't see themselves as unattractive. A lot of men lack self-awareness when it comes to their own physical appearance. They don't see themselves as ugly even when they are. And some of men are narcissistic and they will never see themselves as ugly. So in this case, it's possible that an ugly man would spend money. And as well, let's be honest, most men don't have self-awareness about his looks. A lot of men believe themselves to be highly attractive even when they are not. So that's why it is easy for an ugly man to spend money on women because he's not aware how undesirable he is, and he's not afraid that he's going to lose his money and his investment when he gives to a woman, because he's going to assume that she's going to give him attention and time. So in this case, because most ugly men don't believe that they are ugly, they are E tier, which is effective, which means that a man who is E tier is not super cheap. There is a small percentage of possibility that this man could be cheap. Like I said, only in the case that he does not believe himself to be attractive enough. But like I said, most men don't have that level of self awareness about his looks, and most men who are ugly do not know that they are ugly. So a lot of men spend money on women who are ugly, and they are not scared to lose their investment. Even when they do later on lose their investment, and they are always confused, they don't know what happened. So those those ugly men are E tier. They are effective. You know, every time when I see an ugly man, I always check out if he thinks that he is ugly. Because if he is aware that he's ugly, he's going to be cheap because he knows that a woman is not going to give him any time of attention or anything, even if he pays her. But every time when I talk to an ugly man, a lot of them don't think of themselves as ugly. So it's very likely that he's going to spend even when he's ugly. That's why the ugly man is E tier, which is effective. Now let's talk about the another man is called the performative identity man. Guys, this is the most funniest man ever. I've met so many of them. What is a performative identity man? The best example that I can give you is, do you know that movie The Mask? That Jim Carrey played the character The Mask. You know, Jim Carrey usually have the same character in all the movies. He always have those facial expressions. He's very intense with his emotions. And that's how a performative identity man is. They have the facial expressions. They like to combine emotions like cringiness. I think their favorite emotion to show in their face is cringiness, and with worry and cringiness, with happiness, cringiness and excitement. They like to vary the tone of their voices a lot. Like they go from high tone to low tone, and you can. It's very easy to recognize a man who has performative identity. They are always like making faces and having all of those facial expressions. And sometimes they also have gestures too that combines with the facial expressions too. They always also sometimes they use their whole body to convey certain emotion. It's always cringy emotion. And those kind of men are cheap, and I believe for two reasons. The first reason why I think a man who has a performative identity is stingy is because those men believe themselves to be so funny, and they think that the entertainment that they provide to women is enough for women to be rewarded more than money. They probably think that the entertainment that they offer it's worth a lot of money, so they don't think that they have to provide money to women. That's why those men are stingy, because they are paying the in a different way in their opinion. And the second reason why I think that those men, they have a performative identity, like Jim Carrey for example. But I don't say that Jim Carrey is cheap. I know Jim Carrey is a multi millionaire man, and I don't know anything about him. I just know that there is plenty of men that act like him, and those men who act like him are always cheap. Always cheap. They don't spend any money. And another reason why they are probably cheap, it's because men like that are usually, they have this so funny personality. They are always in a good mood. Sometimes they like to use self-deprecating jokes. They like to talk bad about themselves in a funny way. They like to make fun of themselves. But the truth is this: a lot of those men who have performative identity, who make those faces, who have those tonalities of voices, who changes a lot, and their body languages, they are inflexible. Deep inside, they have strong political views. Deep inside, they have values, and they have all of those ideas. They are very strong in them. They are men inside who they have strong personalities, and they are inflexible. Inside, they are very serious inside. Inside, a lot of them are very depressed as well, or not angry. Some if you they are so happy like this 90% of the time, but if you piece a man like this off, it's possible that he's going to lose it, and he's going to that mask of him being so happy suddenly turns into being like super angry. And it might also be a man that you could be even be cautious about, because he must, if he is angry, he could be dangerous, not all the time, but like this mask of the 90% of the time happy could all of a sudden falls off, and leave him with what he really is, which is an inflexible man who have strong political views, and who have a inflexible personality. He's serious. Deep inside, he's usually sad or angry or depressed, and he's not willing to change his mind for anything. It would take like planets to align together for him to change who he is, and he's never going to change, and he's not going to do anything that it's not into his best interest. Even though he looks like an idiot and behave like a clown, he's not going to do anything that is not on his favor completely. And he's usually selfish, and he's not funny, and he's not flexible like he seems that he is. So that's why the performative identity man is a C tier, which is a cost conscious, which not always means that he's going to be cheap. But when a man come off doing making those faces and making trying to make you laugh, it's possible that he is cheap. And that's why a man who has performative identity is a C tier. Thank you guys so much for watching. This video definitely have a part 2, and I'm making this part 2 very soon. Stay tuned for the part 2, because guys, the part 2 it's even more interesting than the part 1. Thank you for watching, and subscribe to my channel.